Wade Swykle. Wade is the founder and CEO of Two College Brothers Moving, Storage, and Franchising, host of Grow Your Moving Company podcast, and co-founder of Moving Titan Retreats. So with that, Wade, I know everyone's really excited to hear how you've done this, but how to design and operate a multi-million-dollar business.
All right, perfect. All right, so multi-million-dollar processes. You heard me talk a little bit about in the Q&A about systems and processes, and I want to talk about how our company, Two College Brothers Moving and Storage, does this. A little bit about us first. We've been in business now for over 11 years, and we just got into franchising. I've wanted to franchise since day one. We ran 2 locations before we got all of the legal paperwork done to set up a FDD. As you mentioned, I'm the host of the Grow Your Moving Company podcast, Two College Brothers Moving, Storage, and Franchising, co-founder of Moving Titan Retreats, which is a mastermind for moving company owners, and we're going to be hosting one here next month in Tampa. I also own a couple other small businesses or partnered in them. Suncoast Wiffle League, for those of you who follow me on Instagram, I'm big into wiffle ball, and Langston Luxury Transport is a new vehicle rental business that getting off the ground. I've got a master's degree from the University of Florida, a bachelor's in telecommunications, broadcast journalism, and my master's is in entrepreneurship from Florida. So we'll jump right into it. Really, the only way to scale is to have systems and processes. This is a roadmap for where we expect to have locations over the course of the next 3 to 5 years. We've got Gainesville and Tampa. We're going to be expanding primarily in Florida, but also across the Southeast. And as I mentioned before, I think there are certain things that having an ownership presence in a small town can assist with, but systems and processes are really the secret sauce to being able to scale and basically making it so that you don't just have a people-driven business. It's super important to have good people, but you want to have a system and a process designed to attract those people, just like Winston was talking about earlier. So, as we continue to grow, we want to be able to streamline the onboarding process for franchisees. We want to be able to streamline the onboarding process for new movers, drivers, salespeople, managers, dispatchers, accounting and finance. And we want everybody in the company to know where to go to get resources on how to do their job at the best possible way to do it. Having been in business now for over 11 years, I have done a lot of trial and error, made a lot of mistakes, and I've tried to basically reverse engineer the perfect moving experience based off of that trial and error, but also seeking mentorship, like Eric Works had mentioned. Eric's actually been a big help and mentor to me, along with Tim and some of the other speakers that are here today. And that's also why we do the Moving Titan Retreats, is to get all those different mentors and movers in the same room to share ideas, best practices, what works, what doesn't. And I've learned a lot through doing the podcast now. It is the longest running active moving industry specific podcast. I've been doing that since about 2017. A lot of the speakers here have been multiple guests, or repeat guests, I should say, as well as guests at our retreats. And I feel like I've been able to pull away a lot of the best nuggets from every single thing in designing our processes. And it's a continuous work in progress. So let's jump into it. So there has to be a process to creating processes. And I've also, there was a point in time where I had an entire binder full of all the systems and processes, and I struggled to get those processes actually being used and enforcing those processes. And so I realized there's got to be a process for the accountability. There's got to be a process to create the process to roll those processes out. But I think first it starts with really determining your organizational chart, finding, auditing each role that you have and designing the processes based off of the roles and responsibilities and the tasks that each role entails. And then you want your team members to be involved in this too. They're going to participate a lot more in a process if they help design that process. And a key to designing or the best processes to keep them simple and to publish them and be able to reference them. Then again, you have to have that accountability process, the checks and balances to make sure that everything's being adhered to. And you have to roll out those processes and then offer ongoing training and support to make sure that they continue to go. It's just like a car, it needs regular maintenance. So we'll start with step 1, designing your organizational chart for roles and not people. I think it's an easy mistake for somebody to have a business. They've got a bunch of great people, and so they kind of craft roles specifically towards those people. Really what you want to do is, as the entrepreneur, as the CEO, is to figure out what roles do we need in this business, and then assign those people to those roles and set up their processes and document those processes. So if you lose one of those people, you can easily replace them and streamline the onboarding and get somebody up to speed very quickly. And if you want to scale and expand, that's going to be the best way to bring somebody new on the team. And maybe once you're big enough and somebody's wearing several hats, you can hand over a role or hand over a responsibility to the new person that you bring on, because the people that got you to 1 million probably won't get you to 3 million, and the people that got you to 3 million probably won't get you to 7, and so on and so forth. So you're probably going to outgrow a lot of the people that you're with today. Very rarely does somebody stay with an organization for the entire duration of that organization's existence. And the only way to continue that forward momentum when you lose somebody and you're bringing new people into the organization is to be able to give them a process. So here's an example of our organizational chart. You have your CEO, your franchise owner at the top. We've got a chief of staff, we've got a chief financial officer. He's a fractional CFO for the size of company that we are right now, but he has systems and processes too, and he's helping to refine and create those. We've got a general manager, a sales manager, a marketing manager, operations manager, of course, and then it kind of goes all the way down to your movers, your drivers, your packers, your brand ambassadors, your inside moving consultants, your outside moving consultants, commercial moving consultants. All three of those moving consultant positions are part of a business development team. So I think one of the things that was talked about earlier was hiring a business development person. You can have a whole team of that. I want everybody in my company to be on a business development mindset, looking for opportunities to grow. And then, of course, your warehouse supervisor and your dispatch. So you can really break it down and simplify it into 4 separate departments. You've got your sales and marketing. So this is going to be like your sales manager, your sales trainer, or your coach, inside moving consultants, outside moving consultants, your commercial moving consultants, your door knocker, business development team, a director of marketing, somebody who handles, a lot of the business development, boots on the ground stuff, but also works with your vendors for search engine optimization, social media, Google ads, Google guarantee, all that stuff. And you can work with outside vendors too, but you want somebody to wear the hat of coordinating all those different marketing aspects. And then a brand ambassador. This could be a mover who wants to get into marketing or move up in the company. They might go out to trade shows or hiring events. This might be an intern. People don't leverage interns that often. Usually a big city has several colleges that you can get an intern from. And then you have your operations department. So this is going to be everything that basically brings in the money every day. Your sales is going to put the money on the calendar. Operations is going to make it happen. So you need to have a good operations manager, a dispatcher. Maybe it's the same person wearing both the dispatcher and the operations manager hat. You're going to need good crew chiefs. I've heard them called crew leaders, leads, drivers, whatever you want to call that. And that's something that should be noted is that I might have a different name for a position that you have. The name of the position doesn't matter so much as what the roles and responsibilities of those positions are. Movers, packers, local drivers. You might have a different set of drivers for long haul. People that are DOT certified that maintain the driver logs. There's a separate set of training that needs to go to a long distance driver. A warehouse manager, maybe a trainer for new movers that come on board that facilitate these processes. And then, Tracy talked a lot about the accounting and the finance piece. So important to be able to know, where you're going and what you can afford and what you want to invest in, what's an investment versus what's an expense. And we use a fractional chief financial officer, a fractional CFO that works with some other companies because of the size that we currently are. Then you're going to need a CPA. Usually this is outsourced. A bookkeeper, you could have that internally. We had one for about 2 years internally before we went to the CFO firm that actually has bookkeepers that work with him. Accounts payable, accounts receivable, controller, financial advisor, and then your customer service and HR. This is going to basically be, we call it a chief of raving fans, somebody who handles every single customer's claim, but also proactively encourages customers to become raving fans and spread the word about us. We have a chief of staff. This person is responsible for the hiring, the job ad postings, the initial call screenings, kind of like an HR person. You might have an HR person. As you grow, that becomes a very, very important position in the company because as you have more people, then you're going to have more problems. More people, more problems, as they say in some rap songs from the 90s. You know, a recruiter, always be actively looking to recruit people. Don't just passively wait for people to walk in your front door. And our chief of staff slash HR person is also our process development manager. I think she might even be on this call here today, but we're working very closely together right now in trying to improve our systems and processes, and to enforce them and to create those checks and balances. And then it could also be a trainer in the customer service and HR department that helps train new employees. So you'll assign team members to roles. You and your team may be responsible for multiple roles. It's very, very common for a small business owner or a team to wear several different hats. I can pretty confidently say I've worn every single hat in the company. At one point or another, I've done every single role, from being on the trucks to dispatching to recruiting and hiring to building out the processes to begin with, to sales and marketing. And now at this point, I get to do what I enjoy and what I'm best at, which is more of like the sales and the basically process development. You know, I like doing sales, marketing, process development, and so I play a role in that. Operations and dispatch is not my favorite thing to do, dealing with all the movers and talking to all the customers, throughout the day. I have a general manager and an operations manager and a dispatcher that helps with those things. So the benefits of having an org chart and clearly defining what those roles are is that it defines what everybody's roles are. Early on, I had a general manager, and we would both answer the phone. We'd both meet up for dispatch at the same time in the morning. We'd even both go and do errands together, deposit checks, go fix a broken stool, whatever it was. And it wasn't until I started to seek out that mentorship and connect with people like Eric and Louis Massaro and some of these other people that I realized that these need to be clearly defined, including my role as the CEO. It also clarifies who reports to whom. A lot of times you'll have a salesperson wanting to come talk to the operations manager about something. Is that the best person to talk to, or should they be talking to their direct superior, the sales manager? Or maybe it's something that the CEO should be handling. Especially once you get bigger and you have those layers of leadership and management. Typically as a bigger company, the CEO really only has an inner circle of like 6 executives for a large company, and then they kind of go down the chain, and it's really important to be able to delegate that. It allocates team member responsibilities so that there's no confusion on who's supposed to be doing what. You don't have inefficiencies with 2 people doing the same thing and then nobody doing something else that's really important. What's even worse is when you assume that somebody else is supposed to be doing something and they're assuming that you're supposed to be doing something. Having that organizational chart is super important for that too. Helping to lay the blueprint for process development. When you have all of the different roles identified and you've assigned people to those roles, you can now start to build out the processes for those roles. It helps define the role-based compensation. If you're trying to figure out how to pay a certain employee, whether it's a manager, a general manager, an operations manager, a sales consultant, a mover, each different person in your org chart is going to be compensated differently. And you might have people that wear multiple hats that would basically get compensation, two people's compensation, because they're doing 2 different jobs. And as you grow, that becomes harder and harder because each role takes on more responsibilities, requires more time and management. And it shows the team the bigger picture, path to advancement. If you start off as a mover with us, an entry-level position, you can see the roadmap on how you can work your way up to be a crew chief, to be a dispatcher, ultimately an operations manager. Our operations manager started as a mover. A lot of our salespeople have started as movers, whether they were with my company or another company previously. And so, you basically, by promoting from within, you encourage a really positive culture that gives people more of a sense of opportunity and not just a dead end job as a mover, and being able to provide a graphic that people can easily understand. So once you've got your organizational chart figured out and you've got your different roles and responsibilities figured out, it's time to audit each role. List tasks each team member does each day, and they can do this. You can help them do this. You can give them, basically an outline of what to write down. But as the day goes on, take notes of all the different things that you're doing. Even you as the CEO, take notes of all the little things that you're doing throughout the day. List out those tasks. You might get questions from movers. A lot of movers love to go directly to the CEO to ask them a question. But if the CEO is busy with something or doing a higher value activity than asking if they can get a reimbursement for $10 for whatever it was that they bought, that ultimately eats away at your time as the CEO. So list the subordinate questions and then assign those questions and those tasks and those departmental type of concepts to the right role. And that way they know the mover knows if they want to get a reimbursement for buying some packing supplies out on a job site, then they know exactly who to go to. So they're not asking 6 different people who don't know the answer, going directly to the CEO and taking up your valuable time. And then assigning each task and each responsibility to the role, and assign each role to a team member. And again, they might have to wear multiple hats. Here's just an example. It's kind of blurry and there's a lot of stuff on here, but this is something that we use in our company. We've got a spreadsheet for all the different categories for our high level leadership that we write out, when something comes up, we add it to this spreadsheet and then we color code who is supposed to be responsible for that. And then if we don't currently have a system or a process for that task or for that question that might arise, then we know we need to add it to the sheet and we need to start the process of creating a process for it. And that really just starts with assigning it to the right person. So once you've got that all figured out, and you're clear on who should be doing what, you'll want your team to start documenting, how they do those things. How does your operations manager, your dispatch, get the guys out in the morning? How does your mover wrap up, every single piece of furniture that they wrap? How do they load the trucks? What comes in first? What comes in last? How do you do the paperwork? Have them physically write out how they're currently doing it. And then you as the CEO, or if you are fortunate enough to have somebody that is a process development person or a consultant with your company, you can sit down with them and review things, ask questions, get really granular and try to peel back the onion. If they say, yeah, we just dispatch out the guys in the morning. Okay. So like when you first get to the office, what do you do first? How do you determine who gets in what truck? How do you determine what goes out with each truck? How do you do the inventories for what's going out in each truck? Really start to ask a lot of those questions and write down the answers, and then set a deadline for each of those team members who's creating their basically their own process. Give them a deadline so that they get it done. It's really easy to say we're going to go do all this great stuff, but if there's no deadline for it, then it never gets done, and then you get busy with the day-to-day and just start spinning your wheels. So having deadlines is super important. Step number 4, simplify and publish. Some of the most successful politicians, and you guys can probably think of a bunch off the top of your head, are the ones who can communicate to people on a 4th grade reading level. That's the general lowest common denominator of the population. You don't need to write a collegiate level textbook with your systems and processes that are using all kinds of big words and making them confusing and complicated because you think that's how it should look, because it's not. The most important thing is that these are understood and that they're done. You want to get from point A to point B in the least amount of time. What's the direct path of least resistance? You can create checklists, graphics, pictures, videos. We use this program called Loom, where you can record things on your computer as you're doing administrative tasks. We use Trainual. That's where we put everything. And have all of our systems and processes written up. That was one of the big takeaways I had going through academia, going to the University of Florida, getting a master's degree, is they made it way too complicated. Business doesn't have to be that complicated. I mean, it's a tough task to take something complicated and make it very, very simple. And a lot of times in academia, they think that they have this like arrogance about them that they only look smart if they use big words and have super long textbook definitions of how things should go. And it's just not the case in the real world. So here is just a little example of our Trainual. So we've got several different areas outlined here, from onboarding, beginner mover training, crew chief training, mover skill training, dispatch training, and each thing has a test assigned to it to ensure that it's being that team members that are training on it are going through it, that they're retaining the information that you're presenting to them. And then you can assign them these modules. They can download an app on their phone that they can reference with Trainual, and you can monitor their progress and see exactly how far along they are with everything. And just really trying to think of like, what's a perfect day look like? This is for salespeople. Your morning huddle, check email, call new leads, 5x follow-up, 3 + 2 + 1 or 2 + 1 if it's busy. Call new leads all day, take inbound calls, Tim talked a lot about that with Move Beats, and basically there's a quiz on all of this by the time they get through it. Try to keep it short paragraphs, try to have pictures, try to have checklists. We actually have a big vinyl poster in our sales office that has what the ideal day looks like for a moving consultant. And this can be for every role. This could be for movers. You can keep it on the trucks. And that's going to be, Training is a really cool tool, really powerful tool to document and reference everything. Step number 5, accountability processes. So you're going to want to have regularly scheduled meetings. Ultimately, you want to get to a point where you're managing your business and running your business off of meetings and reports. So meet with the different department heads weekly, depending on the size of your company. Maybe you're meeting with the movers weekly yourself at this stage, or maybe you have an operations manager and a general manager who are meeting with the movers on your behalf, and then you can meet with them and get a recap on what they talked about. Daily sales huddles. We have a sales manager that runs our daily sales huddles now. But for a long time, it was me running those daily sales huddles, and then it was our general manager who was running those sales huddles, and now we have a sales manager who does it. I like to do a weekly ops meeting, a weekly executive leadership meeting. There's monthly meetings that we do with the sales team and others. Look at the KPIs. We talked a lot about this earlier today, but the KPIs are basically telling you how healthy your business is, and your higher level leadership should know, what we're shooting for. And then have individual scorecards for each role. So a mover could have a scorecard. They could, have something that says how many 5-star Google reviews they got. They could have something that says how many claims they've had over the course of the last month. Salespeople, we look at our talk times, just like Tim said, our outbound dials, our missed calls from the day before. All those things can go on an individual scorecard so that you can be completely transparent in the process, and people shouldn't wonder how well they're doing. They should be able to reference their scorecard and see exactly how well they're doing. Step number 6 is roll out the process. So this is a mistake that I've made in the past. And basically I'd put in this brilliantly thought through process or price change or whatever it was, and then just expect everybody to adopt it. You have to take it seriously, or else they're not going to take it seriously. You have to be able to show what's in it for them. Demonstrate things, let them demonstrate things, get hands-on with it. Some people think that people are trained just when they start and then they don't have to train anymore, but that's just not the case. Training never stops. Onboarding happens once and training never stops. Write that down. You have a pen and paper with you right now. But ongoing training is so important, and I take it seriously. That's why I watch seminars like this. That's why we do our moving time retreats. That's why I've been out to Louis Massaro 6-10 times. I did the private client thing with him a few years ago with Tim. And I'm always reading books. I'm always listening to podcasts. I'm always listening to Audible, going to conferences. I've got like 3 more conferences I'm going to this year, connecting with mentors. So if the CEO is always training, then everybody under the CEO should also always be training, because it filters directly down. And then step number 7 is the ongoing training approach, the 4-point approach with ongoing training. So I think that people learn in different ways. And I think it's been proven by psychologists and all that stuff that people learn in different ways. Your job as the business owner and the CEO is to make sure that you've hit them from every single angle with the best way to learn your process. And again, keeping things as simple as possible. So, you're going to start off by documenting the processes in writing. Try to simplify it. If you write out a process and it's a whole page long, try to get that down to a paragraph if you can. Maybe you have extra things in there that they can reference, but the overall point is to get the point. And so you want to have something in writing that you can base everything else off of, and that people can go back and reference if they have a question. If somebody comes to me with a question and I know it's in Trainual, I redirect them to Trainual. I say, hey, did you look in Trainual first? And I instruct all my managers and leaders to be able to do the same thing. You want to have something visual. People like things that are visually appealing. A picture's worth 1,000 words. So graphics, checklists, how not to do something. You might show a picture of a really poorly loaded truck that some other moving company did, or maybe your moving company did, and you never want to do that again. Show them how it's not supposed to look, because a lot of times people who are new to this business, they don't know. And that's okay if they don't know in the beginning, but if they still don't know a year down the road, then that's your fault as the owner. Show them examples of how it's supposed to look. we're in the process. We've got a video company on retainer right now. We're going to be releasing some of them on YouTube on how to do general moving activities, like how to wrap a dresser, how to move a rug, things like that. We also have a lot more detailed ones that are more internal that we're probably not going to be sharing publicly, but videos are very valuable tools. And there's not a lot out there, but there is a good amount on YouTube if you're searching for how to do the technical aspect of moving. Even GIFs, make it funny. Send out GIFs to your group texts with your team. Something visual that really demonstrates what you're trying to do. Audio, this is actually how I typically prefer to learn. A lot of people, I think it's like only 10% of the population, but listening to things can be a really valuable tool too. I do the podcast. I encourage my team to listen to the podcast. When I have a great episode with a sales coach or consultant, I say, hey, check out this podcast I just did with this person. I had a lot of really good takeaways. Maybe you download something, like maybe you download, a 2-minute long video where you do an audio on your phone and text them, voice to text, where you can do like the little snippets where they hear your voice and they can listen to it while they're driving or doing chores around the house or possibly working. Salespeople listening to calls, listening to their own calls, listening to other salespeople's calls. Who does a really great job on the phone, who doesn't do a really great job on the phone. Let them listen, hear the different things, and then just having conversations with people, talking with them, doing Q&As with them, with your team, with your crew. And then probably the most common learning style is the kinesthetic approach. Let them do it. Don't train somebody that you'll do their job for them if they come to you with a question. Let them try to figure it out. Teach them to be resourceful, to go back and look at the training or the written references or the checklists. Teach your movers how to wrap a chair or a coffee table or whatever you have laying around the office. I know our Gainesville office just they got a bunch of haul-away furniture that they just kind of kept and created a little training station so that people can learn how to take glass shelves out and wrap them. And then you can make it a contest. You can have fun with it, but have them do it. Do role play with your sales team, do role play with your movers when they're trying to ask for a 5-star review. And then just have them physically do it or say it or go through the motions, with your CRM, whether you use Supermove or Smart Moving or whatever else there is out there, Movegistics, when they're learning how to do it, let them do an estimate of the office furniture. Let them go home and work through the CRM. You can show them the videos that they have in their resource center. You can tell them how to do it. You can have it listed out, but you're not truly going to get it proficient with it until you just do it. And then supervise it and give them feedback and then let them do it again. Those are all really good ways that you can continue to train people. And then if you start to see a bunch of claims in one area, you can focus your meetings on preventing those claims. If you start to see a problem here, you can start to do that, or just offer refresher courses. The reason I've been out to the Louis Massaro conferences, I think 4 or 5 times at this point, I'm probably going to go in October, is because every single time I go, it's like, oh, you know what? I knew that. I've heard that before. This isn't new information, but it gets front of mind. That's the benefit of just the ongoing training, is that you keep things front of mind, and it's just like driving a car. It becomes secondhand nature when it's time to go to battle. Here's some great books that I recommend on systems and processes. First one I mentioned in the Q&A is the Dan Kennedy series. He's got a whole bunch of books. I actually have the entire library of his books at my home. I love that author, Dan Kennedy. A lot of really old school approaches, but timeless approaches. And he's got a really good one on management. The E-Myth classic, if you haven't heard of this, then go read this one first. This is all about designing systems and processes and how to do it and how to scale doing it. Buy Back Your Time is one I just read, and it talks about creating systems and processes in every aspect of your life, including like your house cleaner. If you have somebody who comes and cleans your house, he recommends like basically having a map of your house and shading in the areas that you used for the cleaner to focus on when they come back around, or getting a personal assistant. He says that the first hire any entrepreneur should ever make is a personal assistant, and you can get a virtual personal assistant in the Philippines for like $6 an hour, and they have a master's degree and speak perfect English. They can help you set appointments, something that I'm currently in the process of trying to get locked in. And then another great one is Tommy Mello's Elevate. This talks about recruiting a winning team, setting up those systems and processes and scorecards. He's got a $200 million garage door company. He hosts the Home Service Expert podcast, and he's actually going to be coming on my podcast next week. So super excited about that. But I got a lot of value for this book, and I bought it for several members of my team as well. So that's pretty much it. Here's how to contact me. You can find me on Instagram, direct message me. You can email me, set up a free consultation call with me. I usually charge for that, but people that are at this conference, happy to jump on a call with you if you want to schedule some time. If you're interested in coming and checking out our retreats and getting around other ambitious moving company owners, and I'll open up my systems and processes and my training and show those to you guys if you're interested in coming. That's next month in Tampa, September 27th to 30th. And then you can listen to my podcast on all major platforms. And I don't know if I have any more time, but happy to do a Q&A if I do.
Wade, thank you so much. We do have some time and we do have questions. So if you guys have questions, put them in the Q&A. We're going to go through these over the next 10 minutes or less. Wade, first question, man. I got two of these, so we'll answer two of them at the same time. If you're starting a new company today, right, or the other person said, hey, I'm a brand new company and I'm just starting, what approach or what advice would you take for them? What would you do? What advice would you give them?
I'd seek out mentorship right away. It took me 6 or 8 years to figure that out. And once I found the mentorship, again, people like Eric, a lot of the OG moving titans that have come to our first retreats, the podcast, that was the biggest silver bullet to shortcutting success, whether it was in moving or any other industry. If I go open a coffee shop one day, I'm going to go find all the Facebook groups for coffee shop owners. I'm going to call all the different coffee shop owners, whether they're in my market or different markets, and try to pick their brain, because that will expedite your success very, very quickly. And that's what I tell people that are looking to either convert to a franchise or buy a franchise that have no experience in the moving industry, is that you get that mentorship not only from me, but from the other franchisees, from the network that I've been able to build across the country through the different projects that I've done over the years, the conferences, all that good stuff. But I think mentorship is the number one thing you can do to get started. From, I guess, a technical aspect, you might want to, just really focus on and become the best in the business at your trade or your skill, because the best way to grow a company, in my experience, is through consistently providing that raving fan experience that people are excited to tell their family and friends about. And then you can dial in the technical aspects as you go. But I think mentorship is going to answer all the little ins and outs. You could read all the books and listen to all the podcasts in the world, and you'll get a lot out of that. I certainly have. But when it's like, find somebody who is modeling the success that you want to achieve, and that will get you there so much faster. And sometimes you have to pay a mentor, sometimes you don't, if they're generous enough to give you their time. And I'm happy to be a mentor for anybody that wants to reach out, assuming that I have the time to and the bandwidth, unless all 160 people do. But for what I know, and I'm still learning every single day too, and I still continue to seek out that mentorship.
Great. And someone asked, how do you find the mentors? You gave a few options. Do you have any other suggestions on how you would go find a mentor, how you suggest they go find a mentor?
Yeah, you gotta just reach out to people. That's how the podcast started. I was calling other moving company owners that seemed like they had cool concepts in different markets, and the conversations I was having were just pure gold. I was like, man, we got to hit record. We got to make this a podcast. And so, it's open. I didn't have really an end goal with the podcast, but I knew it could only open up doors, and the industry needed something like that. And so I just started reaching out and saying, hey, I do this podcast. Would you like to come on and just talk moving for an hour with me? And that's ultimately how it started. And I've been able to leverage that podcast platform to get access to some really cool people. But I mean, if you just, call or email, 20 companies that are an awesome company that you want to be like one day, guarantee you'll get several responses back, and you could offer to pay them or donate something to their favorite charity. There's something that Chad, actually, my partner in Moving Time Retreats, introduced called the Pizza Trick, where we were trying to get a hold of Tommy Mello to get him on the podcast, and we sent him a pizza. We took out a slice and to his office, and we said, Tommy, you're the missing piece to our Moving Titan retreat, or you're the missing piece to our podcast. And like immediately we got a call from his assistant and set everything up. So get creative with it, have fun with it, and try to provide value to people that you're getting that mentorship from. Don't just take. Like, if you have nuggets that you think would be valuable to them, or you have something that you might be able to put them up on a platform that to get their message out, or if they support a charity that they're really passionate about, give back. It's the law of reciprocation. If you give something to somebody, then they're probably going to give you something back in multiples.
Yeah, and for all of you guys listening, the people who showed up today to speak and give this value, they weren't paid tens of thousands of dollars to be here. Like they want to give back to the community, so they would be a great place to just start by just reaching out to them and maybe just start and say, what's the forum? Whether it's on Messenger, whether it's a text, what's the forum? How can I just learn from you? So, Wade, what's the name of your podcast? We got people wanting to know. Go ahead and share it again.
Yeah, it's the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. It's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, pretty much anywhere you can find a podcast.
Yeah, cool. And you just had a good looking guy on there at one point, I hear. So
yeah, I think his name was Travis.
Hey,
oh, it was you. Hey.
There it is. Question from Greg here is, Wade, where can we go get that virtual assistant for $6 an hour?
Yeah, great question. So Upwork, I actually have somebody that I found on Upwork that produces my podcasts. I have somebody in the Philippines that actually books me on other podcasts and helps me find guests for mine now. I used to just reach out to people myself, but it's time consuming. There's a few other platforms online that I don't know off the top of my head, but I'd start on Upwork because you can find a lot of really strong international talent for very low cost.
Yeah, and if anyone does want more information on that, I've got a pretty strong team in the Philippines. And so Upwork, onlinejobs.ph is another one. So if you want more details outside of Upwork and that one, just reach out to me and I can share you where I find top talent out in the Philippines. So another question from Michael, how do you structure your compensation for higher skilled positions such as operation manager and dispatch, etc.?
Yeah, so for our current operations manager, we give him 1% of gross profit each month. He gets a base salary plus 1% of gross profit. And then if he exceeds 50% gross profit, or if we as a company exceed 50% gross profit, he gets another percent. So he's motivated to keep our payroll costs down. He's motivated to keep our fuel costs down, our rental truck costs down, claims down. He's motivated to, or incentivized, I should say, to collect cash and checks as opposed to paying credit card processing fees, or to charge a credit card processing fee if we do have to take a credit card. Per diem amounts, hotels, trying to find good deals. So there's a lot of things that they're in control of keeping costs low on. And then if there's like a sales, blow an estimate in sales or something like that, then we'll work with him to, factor those out. But whatever he's in control of, mostly it's the cost of goods sold. As long our pricing is set up to, if sales does their job correctly, we should be at like 55 to 60% gross profit. And so he gets incentivized off of that plus an additional percent if we at least hit 50.
Cool. No, that's great. I don't have any questions left. Everyone, put a 5 in if Wade was super helpful for you guys today, as a way to thank him for being here. Wade, thank you so much. Really appreciate you being here, and appreciate the time and the value that you've given to the team today.
Absolutely. Well, if anybody needs anything from me, I believe in the law of abundance, abundance mentality. I'm always happy to share ideas. I've realized over the years that there aren't a whole lot of true secrets in this industry that you can't find. It's all about execution. So I'm an open book with sharing, pretty much anything you want to know. And it's ultimately going to be up to you to execute it. And you're in control of your own destiny. That's why I love this business and just being an entrepreneur in general.
Thanks, Wade. Appreciate you. Thanks for coming today.
Yeah, thanks, Travis. Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.